Good morning. Welcome to the second day of the 2021 MakeMore Manufacturing Summit Business Growth segment. My name is Zoraida Velasco, Executive Vice President at Florida Makes, and your MC for today. Before we kick off the program at 8:30, I want to invite you to join us for live networking, just like yesterday at the Made in Florida Showcase Expo. At the expo, you'll be able to connect with Florida's manufacturing stakeholders. This virtual exhibition hall features booths from the Sterling Manufacturing Business Excellence Award finalists and the 5 winners we announced yesterday, MakeMore sponsors and partners, plus live networking via Zoom hosted by Florida's Regional Manufacturers Associations. If you visited yesterday, make sure you pick a different booth to visit today. Live networking will end at 8:30, but all booths will be available on demand through Manufacturing Month in October. So come back and visit at your leisure for the next 4 months. Yesterday, we received feedback from you, so thank you very much for sending. You had some difficulties around visiting the booths and trying to network. You should have received an email addressing those, but just in case and to make sure your experience today will be seamless, I'm going to walk you through how to enter the Made in Florida Showcase Expo. You're going to have to click on the Made in Florida networking logo that you see on the top left of your screen. When you do that, a new web browser is going to open. Once you're inside that new web browser, you're going to have to select regional booths and networking if you want to network live. When you're in there, you'll see these yellow tiles for each of the regions that you can network in. Select a region that you'd like to network in, and then click on the play button on that yellow big box that shows up. This will take you into a regional booth, and then once you're in there, click on the Made in Florida Expo logo again, and it'll direct you into the Zoom room where you'll be able to meet the team at that Regional Manufacturers Association hosting you for live networking. Now, don't forget to visit the rest of the booths and leave them a message for a chance to win a Made in Florida basket. You'll need to do that before the end of the day today. These baskets have been put together by the Regional Manufacturers Associations with an article or articles from their member manufacturers. Now remember, when you click on that Made in Florida Expo logo, a new web browser will open, and you can select what region in Florida you'd like to network with, or what sponsor or partner booth you'd like to learn more about. You can jump from booth to booth for the next 30 minutes by going back to the browser that will open once you click that logo. Enjoy, and I'll see you back here at 8:30.
Welcome to the 2021 MakeMore Manufacturing Summit. This first in a series of events highlights business growth and the importance of manufacturing in Florida's overall economy. Florida is home to over 21,000 manufacturers, accounting for over 380,000 high-wage jobs in the state, and accounting for almost 5% of Florida's gross domestic product. Today, you'll hear from business and government leaders during two fascinating panel discussions. The first on Florida's emerging industries, and the second on Florida's evolving business climate. And distinguished guests and panel participants who are experts in the manufacturing industry. The 2021 MakeMore Manufacturing Summit is hosted by Associated Industries of Florida, the Florida Chamber of Commerce, CareerSource Florida, Enterprise Florida, and Florida Makes. And now, here is your host for the day, the Vice President of Florida Makes, Zoraida Velasco.
Good morning. To those of you joining us back from the expo, welcome back. And those who are just joining, welcome to day 2 of the 2021 MakeMore Manufacturing Summit Business Growth segment. If you participated in live networking, I hope you enjoyed meeting other manufacturing stakeholders across the state. If you missed the networking, please make sure to introduce yourself in the chat and tell us why you're here. We will have live networking again for another 30 minutes at the end of today's program. The next 2 hours will be filled with information and great speakers. Then you will have another opportunity to connect with fellow attendees live. Before we get into the fun stuff, let me go over some housekeeping that will make your virtual experience with us today smoother. If you're having technical difficulties, please click on the yellow square with the question mark found at the bottom of your screen. You can also email events@floridamakes.com with any questions, or our team at the studio by downloading the event support contact sheet from the resources box. Or even easier, submit your questions through the Q&A box on the left of your screen. Anything you submit through that Q&A box will be sent privately to our production team here in the studio. If you'd like to interact with other attendees, you'll need to click on the group chat icon, which is the icon on the right of the engagement tools at the bottom of the screen. It's through this chat that you'll be able to participate when opportunities to win prizes come up. If the media player where you're watching me disappears, it's because you've inadvertently minimized it. To get it to open back up, simply click on the red icon with the triangle inside a square that looks like a play button. You can also manipulate the size of the media player inside the console by moving it around in the screen. If you're watching from a large monitor, sometimes the layout gets a little wonky and you'll want to adjust where your engagement tools are placed. Furthermore, today's sessions are being recorded, and you will be able to view them later on demand. They're also being recorded because Florida Tax Watch will be writing a report summarizing our discussions and issuing recommendations based on your feedback throughout the summit. Before we kick off the first panel of the day, here's your first chance to win a Landers gift card. Yesterday, we announced the 5 bronze winners for the Sterling Manufacturing Business Excellence Awards. The first person to type in the chat the name of one of those 5 winners wins a card. We'll give it a few seconds for you guys to think back to what you heard yesterday when we made those announcements and type in the name of one of those 5 companies who were announced yesterday. And Wendy G got it right. It's Redwire Made in Space. So congratulations, Wendy G. Please send us an email at events@floridamakes.com with your mailing address, or send it to us through the Q&A box, and our team here at the studio will get that mailed out to you. And now we'll go into our first session of the day. We have a stellar panel of manufacturers from the emerging manufacturing subsectors. Yesterday, Adrian Johnston from DEO set the stage for our conversations by highlighting the top 10 manufacturing industries by job growth. Here is a screenshot of her graph. For this next panel, we selected 3 companies from that list to validate what Adrian spoke about. Transportation manufacturing, which was number 1, food manufacturing coming in at number 4, and chemical manufacturing, which was number 7 on her list. To moderate this panel, we have asked the longtime friend of Florida Makes, Joel Gunter, to join us. Joel is a results-driven Senior Director of Business Development at Enterprise Florida with an established network of potential clients and a proven track record of balancing a large portfolio of complex projects, coordinating state and local government officials, and driving lead generation efforts. Joel possesses advanced knowledge of Florida state and local taxation, credits and incentives programs, and selection practices. Primarily, Joel manages manufacturing and clean tech projects at Enterprise Florida. Please make sure you submit your questions in the Q&A box while Joel is moderating the session. He'll make sure to bring those up as time permits. Joel, thanks for joining us. Let's get this panel started.
Thank you, Florida Makes, for asking me to moderate this panel. We have a great topic, emerging industries. My name is Joel Gunter. I'm with Enterprise Florida. Just a little bit of commercial if you don't know what Enterprise Florida does or what Enterprise Florida is. It's the state's economic development organization. I'm in the business development division. We work with companies to expand and grow and recruit new companies to Florida. I work particularly in the manufacturing sector. We have an international division that helps existing Florida companies expand markets overseas. We have 14 foreign offices. We help companies exhibit at trade shows, conduct trade missions. Go to enterpriseflorida.com if you want to see all the different things that we can do to help existing Florida manufacturers be competitive and grow. We have 3 great Florida manufacturers on the panel today, all in emerging industries. I'm going to let each one of them introduce themselves. And if you will, just tell a little bit about your background, what your company does, and we'll go from there. Lonnie, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, thank you, Joel. My name is Lonnie Bernardoni. I'm responsible for supply chain and manufacturing at Luminar Technologies based in Orlando. Luminar is in the space of autonomous driving, and we're really trying to solve the challenge of how do we improve the way that the vehicles and humans interact as it relates to making vehicles safer on the road. So we're in the automotive space. We've been around for 7-8 years, and we're really at the phase now where we've won some major customers, and we are ramping up to provide those units with series production starting next year.
Angela?
Good morning. My name is Angela Reamer, and I'm the Director of Manufacturing at Monin. We're headquartered over in Clearwater, Florida. Monin has over 100 years of experience. We're premium flavor choice for coffee houses and food service operators around the world. We offer more than 200 gourmet flavors and really strive to be a partner to our to our customers. I have over 12 years or 15 years of experience in pretty much every area of manufacturing, from production, maintenance, engineering, quality, safety. So I've really had a diverse experience in manufacturing and really have a passion for it.
Excellent. And we also have Jesse Cruz. So Jesse, will you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Jesse Cruz. I'm the president and owner of Brewer International. Brewer International is a chemical manufacturing business. We actually produce agrochemicals, which are used in forestry, aquatics, and vegetation management. Over 40 years of being in business, we've actually sold almost all 50 states. We actually help not only private corporations, but even states and municipalities manage invasive species and weeds through some of our chemicals. And so, I'm excited to be here today and learn from everybody else.
So the topic is emerging industries. I guess we can start things off by just asking you guys, because you're, in manufacturing on the ground, producing product, kind of what are you seeing in your particular areas of expertise? What does your crystal ball show? And maybe what are some of the challenges that you are facing, and also how you're addressing those challenges?
I'll jump in there. I think as we look at what's happening today in this post-pandemic world, people are really trying to expand quickly after a long pause in hiring. As I look at that, what we're really trying to do is that because we are trying to grow fast, we're really targeting experienced people. We can find people that have the exact experience and they can hit the ground running. We'll take that all day long. What we're struggling with, though, is finding qualified people that have the expertise in the areas that we need, whether it's the engineers that understand, LiDAR, or the factory workers that understand complex assembly. So we're going through a process and basically saying, if we can't get the people with the exact expertise, we find people with similar expertise, that'll be, to shorten their learning curve. And then the third category is even farther down, looking for bright people, motivated, that can start tomorrow and that we can train from the bottom up. So we're basically looking at all of the above, and we're willing to kind of implement the programs necessary to bring all of those folks on board at all levels. From the factory, we've been trying to staff up 35 people for a couple months now. It's been quite a challenge finding people in the Orlando area to work in these factories. In our engineering roles, we have over 100 engineering roles across all disciplines that we're trying to bring on board globally. So staffing is quite a challenge, and we're basically looking at all kinds of creative ways to solve the problem.
Angela, what about you?
Similar challenges and staffing and finding people with the right skill set. This has been something that's been happening for quite some time, with having the skill set of the workers that are needed and keeping up with the needs of manufacturing and technology. We have more people who are retiring out of the industry than are coming in. And so that's certainly an area that we as a collective manufacturing need to work together to address. So some of the things that we do are similar to Lonnie with in-house training. I think some opportunities are getting the industry out there for people to know that this is a really great career opportunity. There are a lot of different things you can do in manufacturing. As you heard, I've done all sorts of different projects and learned so many things, and it's really provided a lot of growth for myself. And I know it has for others, but I don't think that's really well known, that that's something that you can do in manufacturing that does provide a lot of diverse skills and experiences. So whether it be through coordination with parents and high schools and colleges to get that out there. And then also working with some of the workforces that are currently out there and letting them know about manufacturing in Florida. I think it is certainly growing. The Tampa area has a lot of growth in manufacturing as well, which does lend to that crunch of a skilled workforce because there's a lot of opportunities right now.
The way I'd address this one is there are a number of areas that we see, here at Brewer as opportunities for transformation. I think that a lot of manufacturing companies like myself, our business is a small manufacturing company. We're going through all kinds of transformation. We're dealing with things from major supply chain issues right now. As you guys can imagine, the economy is coming roaring back. A lot of our major distributors across the country are asking for products. And it seems like they're making up for lost time in some ways. We've had issues with everything from dealing with trying to acquire, necessary packaging. So we package and label our products here and we ship them out. So getting the necessary packaging has been tough, particularly things like drums, which are petroleum-based products, have been difficult. And other parts of the supply chain, like certain chemicals that actually feed our formulations, have been really hard to acquire. In fact, the last few weeks, I've had to deal with suppliers across the country to find certain products to meet our demand. But it's all good things. I mean, I can't really complain about having increased demand, and I think that's one of the benefits of manufacturing, especially during this pandemic that we've seen. Unlike a lot of friends of mine who are entrepreneurs and people in parallel industries, we've actually not dealt with the major drop-offs I think that you would see in during the pandemic and some of the things that people have seen, partly because you still, in agrochemical manufacturing, you still have to grow trees, grow food, manage, waterways, manage roadways and rights of way. So those things don't really stop. But as I said, we're seeing increased demand. And then the other thing I'll say briefly is there are a number of areas where we're seeing, that are important, like hiring and expansion of our warehouse. It's hard to find the right people, but even just building quick enough to deal with our growth can be really challenging when you have a multitude of other factors dealing with growth, like supply chain issues that might affect your ability to be successful. And then the last thing I'll say is small manufacturers like ours, don't necessarily have the digital presence. So one of the things I've focused on is how do we have a really strong digital footprint as a business? How do we improve our digital sort of way we represent ourselves digitally on the internet, through our website, and through our partners? So those are some of the things I think that, along with a number of other things like sustainability, those are some of the topics that I think are important to me.
Lonnie, you mentioned creative ways that you guys are attempting to tackle that. Can you share some of those ways?
Yeah, I think as we look at it, there's a global competition for talent when it comes to the engineering side of it, and we're essentially looking at how do we pull people from other parts of the country. Whether it's California, where maybe the economic conditions aren't as good with the tax rate and some of the other rules, and how do we draw them to Florida as an area with a huge benefit in terms of tax rate and basically incentives to get them to come. I think as Amanda would agree, it's super critical that we make an environment that's really desirable, so we have some really good benefits within the company, even little things that draw people in. It's like we have free food in the cafeteria and excellent cooks. So basically folks that come there just can't believe that we're offering that service for free, and it has a cost, but it helps us compete with some of the Silicon Valley companies that do the same things. On the manufacturing side, what we're looking at is essentially we're trying to bring workers in to build our product. And, typically as we search for people, most people start off with a contract workforce, and we're looking to convert from contractor to permanent employees faster than we would have before. So if we find those good people, how do we quickly get them on the payroll, and make sure they become, invested in the company or equity owner in the company right away to increase the retention. So nothing too crazy creative, but we really look at it as the consolidation or the accumulation of all these benefits that we're really trying to drive to get people to want to stay.
What about you guys?
We really focus on people. We can have technology and machines, but it all begins and ends with the people in the factory, and throughout the rest of the company as well. So we really focus on, it's a family company. At any given day, the CEO of the company could be walking through the production floor, and that's pretty unique in manufacturing, that someone is that in tune. We do company events, family picnics, go to the Rays game together, and we just did our family picnic at Busch Gardens. So we all got together outside of work and really built those bonds. We also really strive to make sure that there's good work-life balance, which is sometimes a challenge in manufacturing, but for us, it's very important that if people are able to spend their time and rest and give their best selves outside of work, they'll come to work and give their best selves here as well. And developing our team, letting them grow and challenge themselves. And we're really big into recognition and showing appreciation for our team, whether it be a thank you, a gift card, a shout out on our Moaning Connect, or bigger recognition items or challenging projects that they can continue to grow in. But we were recently recognized in Tampa Bay as the top manufacturer for appreciation for our employees. And I think that does a really great thing to not only retention, but attendance and people coming in and giving it their best. And it really is a unique atmosphere, and I think that's one of our biggest draws.
So yeah, I guess for us here at Brewer, hiring has been important for us. We've actually had decent enough growth that we've had to look at hiring a number of positions for our warehouse, even for our sales organization. But I think that I do think the market plays a role. I've heard a lot from folks who are based in Orlando and Tampa and Jacksonville that those markets, it's very hard to find qualified labor. Here in Indian River County, we're a little bit smaller county than some of those others. So I think we've been able to find some folks who have manufacturing experience who are willing to work. We've recently made, a couple hires that actually were good hires, unfortunately. I also think, though, that the way people recruit is changing. I had the good fortune before moving to Vero and taking over Brewer International. I actually lived in the New York area. I have a buddy who actually works at a company called Indeed. And so I've gotten to understand that a lot of these, at least from the experiences that we've had, a lot of the folks that are out there looking for jobs, they're Google searching. They're trying to find the place locally that's around them. And so we've really tried to do some ads through Indeed that's helped us generate a number of applicants for jobs that we've needed. We've also tried to obviously make sure that we sweeten the pot a little bit for the job, make sure that we're telling the story about what's great about Brewer and why it's great. Being a company that's around for over 40 years, we've got longevity. A lot of our employees have been here for a long time, and so we can tell that story very confidently to people who are applying for jobs. We are a small company, but what we do that I think is special is we really try to recognize birthdays. We try to give people an opportunity to make more money. We also give them full benefits. So they get things like, even though we're a small business, they get healthcare benefits, 401k and things like that. And I think what I try to do, I try to tell a story to every employee that might come and work for us, that we're on a path to grow and we'd love them to grow with us, which is a very true story. It's a very important thing. But certainly if I had to deal with some of the other markets where these guys were getting, hardcore recruited by the company next door, then maybe that would probably be an even harder sell. So definitely an interesting time to hire. But I am optimistic that once people get out there and we get past this pandemic, I think things will normalize. I'm hopeful.
Excellent. But I'm in economic development. I'm always curious. How is Florida doing? We have a network of economic development organizations, what we call a primary contact in every county in the state. Of course, Florida Makes is hosting us. How is Florida doing to prepare for the future, for emerging industry? What are we doing right? What can we improve on? What do you think, what are ways that we might be able to help you guys be successful?
That's a good question, Joe. The way I would answer it is if you look at what happens today in the educational system and really preparing the young people for life, what I would really like to see is more integration with what the industries need. As an example, as we look at people coming out of school and what they know about some of the basics in life, like what's a 401k and how to balance a checkbook and all of that, it's completely lacking. Let alone on the other side of it, where there's such a strong push for everyone to go to a 4-year school. I don't think that's right for everyone. So what I've always thought was the right thing to do is how do we basically create, other linkages for people that really aren't four-year college material? How do they get set up with industry? What we're finding is that there's a group of people that we can get them kind of targeted towards, these careers, whether they're technicians in the factory or even factory workers, that there's certain levels of management skills or others that people really need to have. But kind of in summary, I really think that, whether it's at the high school level or even at the college level, targeting what we need as the companies out in the real world would be a huge advantage for us. And I think there could be a lot more done in that area.
I completely agree. That's a huge opportunity. Of the top 20 manufacturing schools in the country, none are in Florida. So I think that is one thing that we can do, is to bring a premier technology schools or engineering and manufacturing, packaging engineering, bringing that to Florida so we have that local talent right here. Florida's great. So we have the talent here. I think they'll stay. And with the having the targeted audience, one of the things that I think the local chapter of AMA has done well is partnering with the AMSCOs. They recently did a manufacturing boot camp, and they learned some skills and some key things in manufacturing, and were able to get jobs in manufacturing out of that. And I think it was a small program, but I think that can be something that can be replicated in other areas to get people who maybe weren't thinking about manufacturing or weren't doing manufacturing before, and giving them some of those baseline skills to be able to step into the industry and really grow. There's a lot of talent out there that maybe just didn't have those initial pieces of experience to begin with.
Jesse, do you want to take a crack at that as well?
Yeah. So, I've heard some really great ideas in this interview that I wholeheartedly agree with. I think, I've actually seen quite a bit from the various organizations that I've dealt with since being a part of the manufacturing space here in Florida. Whether it be Florida Makes or Enterprise Florida or Grow Florida, there are a ton of resources out there and people out there who are very willing to, and very generously willing to, give you their time and expertise. There are programs that I've learned about just in my short time working with these organizations about grants that help with international export-import and other things. I think one area that could really help personally, just from my own experience, is if there was more attention put into building community and even mentorship programs for various companies at different stages within the manufacturing life cycle. We're doing some really sophisticated stuff for small business, but there are some things we deal with that quite frankly, we could learn from some of our larger, predecessors, if you will. Everything from our chemical manufacturing business is not entirely just in time, but it is just in time in many ways for the inventory we carry. We are expanding, for instance, our ability to warehouse products. It's literally happening right now, and expanding our ability to keep raw materials for formulations. And but I do think that the best practices around scaling and growth are things that for me and for the folks that work for me, a lot of what we're doing now is solid. But I do think we've learned trial by fire, and I think that as a person involved with this organization and others, is boy, how much information sharing can we get out there around some of the challenges with growth and expansion, or even dealing with supply chain issues. As I mentioned, earlier in the Q&A, I think supply chain is one of those things that can be challenging if you're not getting ahead of things. So are you ordering enough inventory in advance to meet the demand that your customers are asking for? And where are you getting the resources you need to meet those demands? So I think definitely information sharing, but so far so good. Like I said, a lot of positive things I've seen from these organizations so far that I've dealt with.
I know to be successful, you guys really have to focus on what you're doing. But are you active within the region, with other manufacturers? Are there some, do you use Florida suppliers, or is this an area perhaps that could be helpful to kind of locate other manufacturers that could be part of your process? Are you able to even get outside of your focus area and engage with other manufacturers in the area, perhaps economic development groups in the area?
Yeah, the way I would answer that is when I was at Motorola in South Florida, or even Magically down in Broward County, we were active members of the South Florida Manufacturers Association. We were really using that to help us kind of grow and to learn and then participate as it went forward. At Luminar, because we're really just getting going, we haven't engaged in such similar activity as far as an organized entity. What we are doing, though, is we're basically, we're driving vertical integration as much as we can to drive the costs forward. So we have an internal, we call it Advanced Proto Center, but it's really a machine shop that helps us recycle time to deliver parts and tooling to our factory faster. What happens in that business is that we kind of have a boom or bust. When a new product comes out, we're very busy. Between those products, it's more slow. What we're actually doing is creating a network of local suppliers of machine shops. But really, how do we help each other? So when we're slow, how do we help someone else? And when we're full, how do we offload business and try to create a network of very fast, efficient tooling? Because as we launch these products, we have days to literally go from zero to run rate at the new world. So it's really helping us get out in the community and drive some different thinking. We're not competitors, we're actually enabling each other.
Monin is also engaged in the Bay Area Manufacturing Association. I know from our HR VP to operations, very engaged in that and learning from each other. And realistically, the food and beverage industry is pretty small and tight knit. So it can be a small world. So we can utilize our, past relationships and knowledge to come to collective ways of making things better. As far as supply chain, that's certainly, especially recently, a challenge. Being able to get the supplies that we need when we need them, but that our suppliers are having the same challenges that we are. So really fast growth all of a sudden, which is a good thing. But they're facing the same challenges. So certainly anything that can be more local, if we can get our packaging and ingredients in state, of course, that has advantages, not only for us, for cost-wise, for lead time-wise, but environmentally, less time sending things on a truck across the country. So certainly locally is something that is always a benefit if it can be done.
Actually, recently I was very fortunate to attend an event in Palm Coast, a mixer. There's an organization called Grow Florida that does a good job of connecting local manufacturing businesses. But Florida Makes has been, instrumental. I've gotten to know some of the team there. I think, having just returned from New York, returned home to Florida, which is sort of where I'm from, and one of the things that I've really made a point to do is to get involved with as many smart and talented manufacturing leaders as I can, because obviously being around people who can help you maybe have some shortcuts around some of these new methods, new hiring practices, new ways to be better, and that's just a win-win. So for me, it's trying to take time out of my schedule to attend events where I can meet other manufacturing leaders and pick their brain, and also just surrounding myself with as many smart and talented networkers, people who are focused on growth in this space that I can.
So we touched on this a little bit, but there's a nationwide qualified workforce shortage, if not global. So how are you addressing this in your company? And is there any kind of advice or how can that be overcome?
So what we're doing essentially, as I mentioned earlier, where we're in the ramp up mode, it's really about widening the net in terms of where can we pull people from. not only from the local Orlando area, but how can we find folks that are willing to move elsewhere? So whether it's to be a workforce day, trying to find more people, job fairs, et cetera, just really trying to promote our company as something that it's not just a job, but it's a chance to make the world a better place by making cars safer to drive, et cetera, and really raising the bar in terms of the spirit of what we're after. So far, so good. We're making progress.
Excellent. And you're finding that Florida is a place that you can attract people to, and obviously it's a shortage nationwide, but do you think we have a little bit of a leg up perhaps on some of these other areas?
Yeah, I think we definitely, Florida's desirability level is really high. I think that's an advantage over other places. And what we're also finding, though, is that as we try to hire people from other companies, we're seeing those other companies working hard to retain people better than before. So we're basically factoring in the counteroffer stage to see if we can survive that, even though we know that in a lot of cases, the total comp package we're offering is really good. So we have to get over that resistance to change for people, that natural resistance to get them to come. So it's quite a process, and we're spending a lot of time recruiting and interviewing and using our CEO and others as part of the recruiting pool to convince people that we are the future.
Do you think that has something to do with the last year that we've had, the sort of pandemic, and that people are reticent to change companies or some sort of loyalty because they've been employed the last year and in a tough time, or
I would say, yeah, I think it's definitely related to what's happened in the last year with the work from home, where people have, on one level, they've become a little bit more disconnected from the workforce because we're not seeing them every day. At the same time, there's an apprehension about what's next on this global scale of things that can happen. So we're really looking at it to really try to provide and plus with us being an emerging company, there's the fear of going to the unknown. So we're working really hard to kind of address all of those. And, we're not unknown. We have our financial situation is like this, and customer base is like this, and really try to tell the whole story. But we definitely see in this migration towards trying to pull experienced people, which there really aren't that many. We're going to have to go down this path of grabbing those people that are capable of learning and bringing them up the curve very quickly. I think it's going to be part of this long-term kind of what's different about growing your workforce. But I really see a shortage long-term at all levels that we're going to have to account for.
Lived through the pandemic in New York and then moved down here and sort of run this business now. I personally experienced something differently. I think that people are apprehensive because, quite frankly, a pandemic is something you only see about probably every 100 years. People are probably afraid to get out into the workforce and to expose themselves. And for instance, we just hired a warehouse employee who had his grandmother living with him, and his grandmother was at risk. So he had to stop working, otherwise he would be putting her at risk. And so he had a whole period there where he stopped working and started taking a paycheck. Sadly, there are always going to be people who take advantage of the system and take a paycheck, even if they don't need it. But I do believe that as we're going to continue to see, the economy is going to open up. People are going to have confidence again. We're starting to see that already with the kinds of applicants we're getting for our jobs. And as people are vaccinated, in particular, our business, most of our employees are vaccinated. They're getting a lot more confidence in what is happening out there and coming to work every day. So we're doing what we can, but that's all you can do at the end of the day.
Angela, how about you?
We've seen very similar trends and have similar experiences. We're hiring more than ever before. Our HR team is working around the clock trying to find not just people, but the people who fit our culture as a company and who do have the right skill set, or at least the same base skills that we can grow. They don't need to be an experienced mechanic to come in as an operator, but we can bring in somebody who has some of those core skills and give them the additional skills that they need. We've certainly seen that bringing people in from other companies has been more of a challenge over the last year, and I do agree that it has to do with the kind of the fear of, hey, I survived the last year in my role, and I want to keep in that comfort zone. But we did as well. And so just being able to have those conversations with people to let them know who we are and what makes us different. One of the interesting things that I did see with Canada is where the government is giving grants for manufacturers to do internships and apprenticeships, especially in smaller companies. That might be more of a challenge for us to be able to do that because their training with internships and apprenticeships has certainly an advantages that everyone can do, but it does come at a cost as well. So I think that's really innovative way that they are helping to get more people interested and trained up into those skill sets. And so I think that would be something great if Florida could do similarly. I know I'd love to take advantage of something like that. I think it's great to grow people and grow our talent.
Yeah, so this kind of comes back to what I talked a little bit about before. I mean, depending on where your market is, you might just need to find creative ways to get the word out. As I think I mentioned earlier, a lot of people are Google searching, they're online trying to find these jobs. We've used Indeed a few times, and it's very, very successful for us. We also get these essentially little signs you can paste out by your business or even in a busy corner that connect to your Indeed advertisement for a job. So that's helped us a little bit to source a lot of resumes. But in general, what we're trying to do now is just get ahead of things. We're trying to find as many qualified applicants as we can, interview them, and keep them on the hook. I think some of the ways we try to entice these people really is by paying them better wages than what you can find in the area. I mean, quite frankly, you have to pay people if you want to keep them from doing something else. And so, for the type of work we do, we hire selectively. We put a lot of energy into our training process. And so we do try to get people with good pay and good benefits.
Well, you think, obviously we talked a little bit about the workforce shortage. I have another question. Will factory automation solve the workforce shortage?
Yeah, so I worked at Motorola down in Broward County in Plantation for 20 years. We literally we had at the time, somewhere close to 3,000 factory employees. And we really have been chasing this automation dream for a really long time. And what I can tell you is it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, it can take away the repeat steps, right? You put the automation in place and it can do the basic tasks. On the other hand, if your product changes frequently, you're going to need more technicians and more engineers to run that automation. So it was always a trade-off between, do we automate this process and get the payback that we need in 18 months? So I think automation definitely helps. I also would argue that the design process is super critical. How do you design something that goes together very easy? And in any industry, if you think about how designs have evolved over the years, they've gotten much more efficient in terms of manufacturing. I think it's really all of the above to solve the problem, because while we want elegant designs, the engineering team is also, very tight under tremendous pressure. So it's always a trade-off. I think one of the solutions that we've been embarking on is automation. People picture it as complex robots, an automotive factory spinning around doing welds and all that. That's one level. I often push for what are the simpler mechanizations? Sometimes tooling and fixturing can make a process take from minutes to seconds. We're driving a lot of that. In fact, when I was working at Dell, we were pushing for that $50,000 for a piece of automation had to pay back for itself in less than 1 year. So it's one of those, it's a whole nother effort that you need to have people for, but it definitely can help if done right. That's how I would answer it.
Angela, what do you think?
I don't think automation will solve the shortage. I think it changes the shortage. Certainly we can reduce the amount of people needed if we eliminate the non-value added tasks. Things like material movement, repetitive activities, we can automate those things out so we don't need that type of role. But as Lonnie said, what it does is it increases the need for the more technical roles. You need somebody to maintain that equipment. You need somebody to program, to lay it out, to design. And so really it just changes what we're exactly needing in the workforce from to a more technical and higher skill levels. So it really puts the pressure back to the beginning of the conversation around bringing a workforce in who has those higher technical skills, but also who can learn the new skills quickly. Because as more automation comes in, what we learned in college isn't going to be relevant pretty soon. So we have to have a workforce who's agile and who's hungry to learn and grow with the technology that happens. So we've really been focusing on the eliminating of non-value-added tasks so we can use the people that we currently have in the most valuable way, which is also using them in ways that they find more fulfilling as well. But those are some of our automation projects, is really changing that fashion.
I think factory automation is probably, for us, again, small business, small manufacturing company, we have already expanded our processes and improved our warehousing and production process and improved capacity. But automation, I think for us, is a lot easier when you talk about certain things like systems and processes. So, by streamlining our inventory management or supply chain, our logistics, those are things that are a lot more practical for us. We really rely heavily on people power. And so, for our business, I think, and for a lot of small businesses out there, automation is not as available. But I believe in it. I'm a big proponent of technology where it makes sense. Certainly, I think automation can help with the shortage, but I think more than anything, we need to find a way to give people the kind of compensation benefits and support they need to want to stay somewhere long enough. And I think if you create a culture, whether it's small or big business, that somebody feels appreciated, welcomed, and a part of the team, I think you can find ways to keep them. And so that's sort of our motto, and that's probably how I look at this issue.
Well, thank you, guys. I don't think we have any more questions. So just give the floor to the panelists. And Lonnie, Angela, and Jesse, do you guys have any closing remarks that you would make for the folks out there? And thank you for your time, and thanks everybody for watching and for listening.
I'll start with just by saying thanks for letting me participate in this event. I think in closing, right, we're all kind of in this together, trying to drive for, solving our problems that come up every day. How do we expand and meet the needs of the business, and appreciate any support we can get. And wish everybody good luck. Thanks.
Thanks, Lonnie. Angela.
Yes, thank you very much for having me on this panel. And I really enjoyed the discussion and the questions. We certainly are all in it together. Just if you know anyone who's been interested in manufacturing, if you're interested in manufacturing, reach out to the local factories and plants and get a plant tour, learn what it's about. We love to have people ask questions. And so I think the more that we get the word out there on what manufacturing really is, especially today and in Florida, the more that it'll continue to prosper.
Excellent. Jesse?
Yeah, I guess just first of all, really feel very privileged to be on this interview with these great panelists, and just want to thank you guys for even considering me and Brewer International for this opportunity. My closing thoughts are that things are going to be a heck of a lot better than in short order. I think optimism wins the day, and as bad as things have been for a while. I think we can all agree that brighter days are ahead. And so I'm very hopeful and optimistic that in the coming years, we're going to hopefully look back on this time with learnings, but look back on this time and know that we're better equipped to handle something like this as it comes our way.
We really appreciate the panel's time. We know how valuable it is, and we thank you for your time and your expertise. I've learned a lot, and I hope the folks
folks on the summit if you've heard it as well.
That was such a great conversation. You know, in Florida, 80% of manufacturing businesses are considered small with 20 or less employees. So it's imperative that we foster an ecosystem that provides these businesses with the tools and resources needed to take the next step in their growth. That is exactly why we have created the MakeMore initiative, to foster that ecosystem and together elevate the state's manufacturing industry to demonstrate its impact on the economy. We heard Lonnie make a great point, and the other panelists agree that we need to do a better job at preparing younger generations for the jobs of the future, but doing that by integrating industry into the strategy. We're actually going to be covering that extensively during our next MakeMore segment on talent development in July. So if you haven't signed up for that yet, we'll be announcing a discounted special offer for you at the end of today's program. We sincerely appreciate the time these three companies dedicated to participating in today's conversation. Their feedback and yours will be critical as we develop a roadmap to continue growing this industry. Thank you, Joel, Angela, Lonnie, and Jesse. If your question was not answered, rest assured that we will send those into the speakers to get you an answer. But you can actually ask them your question directly or start a discussion on any of the topics we've discussed today by joining the MakeMore community on our website. All you need to do is visit floridamakemore.com and click Join the Conversation on the top right of the screen. Login instructions to that community can be found in the resource box in this console. To access that, click on the blue icon at the bottom of the console that has the paperclip inside of it. That community will be active 24/7, 365 days a year. And it will be where we will communicate to everyone the progress and the next steps of the MakeMore initiative. Now, next up is the business climate panel. Florida's manufacturing sector faced many challenges during the past year due to COVID-19. Manufacturing was deemed essential, which allowed companies to continue operating and pivot their production to respond to the state's most pressing needs. The Florida legislature recognized that manufacturing has remained a bedrock of strength for our state's recovery from the pandemic, and consequently responded this year with the creation of the first ever Florida Manufacturing and Supply Chain Caucus. Thanks to the leadership of State Senators Tom Wright and State Representative Tommy Gregory, the caucus is comprised of a bipartisan group of 16 legislators. Their names are on the screen. If you don't see your local legislator listed, please ask them to contact Senator Wright's office to join the caucus. The members of this caucus collectively ensure that Florida's manufacturers are properly represented in the legislature. The business climate panel that we're about to kick off will be a conversation among leaders in the policy and advocacy arena for Florida's business sector. Moderating this prestigious panel is John Krug, Florida Makes board member, co-chair of our advocacy committee, and senior economic development manager at Niagara Bottling. John, thanks for joining us. Let's kick off our last discussion of the day.
All right, well, thank you, Zoraida, and welcome everyone to our wrap-up session. I want to give a special thanks to everyone viewing today. A special thank you as well to our sponsor, Lockheed Martin, and great gratitude to our esteemed panelists who join us today, who I think you will agree their unique combined experience will provide us with what is essentially an unrivaled opinion on issues facing Florida's competitive, growth-oriented business climate today. In just a minute, I'm going to give every panelist a chance to introduce themselves. They'll have about 10 minutes or so for commentary, after which time we'll have a little bit of Q&A. But hey, the more I talk, the more time I take away from our panels. So without further ado, let me first introduce or turn it over to Representative Chip LaMarca for an introduction.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure to be here, and as well to be on an esteemed panel with Speaker Feeney and the Florida Chamber with Carolyn. A little bit of background about me is I got involved in local government in the city of Lighthouse Point back in 2005 when my wife and I moved to our town where we live, and just kind of started getting involved in things, and that turned into local politics and running the party here in Broward County after Shane Strom left. And I spent 8 years on the county commission, and a very unlikely place for a Republican in Broward County to be was on the county commission, but learned quite a bit. And when an opportunity to continue representing our community in Tallahassee came up, I was only more than eager to jump on that, and had the privilege of serving in the Florida House for the last few years. And the areas that are really important to me, I'm privileged to serve on the Tourism, Infrastructure, and Energy Subcommittee as the vice chair, as well as Infrastructure and Tourism Appropriations. And really those along with Education and Employment Committee, what kind of drives me to continue to do what I do, and that's to be able to be part of our growing economy. And we sit in a place right now where it's never been more important that to get people back in our economy. People are coming from other states to be here. The workforce is probably a talented workforce is probably the most important thing going on right now. And as we try to get people into sectors that are continuing to grow, it's going to be our job to make sure there are opportunities for them to do that, whether that's look at programs, incentives, different things, rebates, whatever it might be. We can talk about this later, but that's kind of where my head is. I'm just, it's my privilege to be able to be in that process and just represent the people of District 93.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Representative. We appreciate your leadership. Our second panelist, Tom Feeney. Tom?
Well, thanks, John, and thank you, Representative LaMarca. I know we're going to hear from Carolyn next. Florida Makes does a great job with these summits, and the business climate panels are an important opportunity to catch up on where we are and, importantly, where we can go. I'm the president and CEO of Associated Industries of Florida. We're a 100-year-old business advocacy organization. Our members are extremely diverse, everything from agribusiness to xylophone manufacturers in the phone book and everything in between. As I said, we've been active for over 100 years. We've got about 10 policy councils. One of them is the Manufacturing, Aerospace, Defense Council. The leader of Florida Makes, Kevin Carr, is actually co-chairman of that council. And AIF is the state affiliate of the National Association of Manufacturers. So we love working with our manufacturing partners. There are great opportunities. It's a time of great disruption, but great opportunities in manufacturing, particularly in Florida, where we have been somewhat behind on a per capita basis in terms of the percentage of our gross state product that is advanced manufacturing, but we're catching up. We've got a long way to go. AIF loves partnering with Florida Makes and many other organizations. This summer, in the middle of the pandemic, in order to put together a pathway forward for businesses of all varieties, including manufacturing, we established the Reset Council, so 63 associations, hundreds of businesses. Kevin Carr and Florida Makes were co-chairmen of the manufacturing piece of that. Some of those issues were adopted by the legislature, including a major tort reform bill and a tax bill that Representative LaMarca will talk about. So I'm glad to be part of the panel today.
Outstanding. Thank you so much for your advocacy now on the AIF front, but also in your past tenure in the legislature and in Congress. Our third panelist is Carolyn Johnson from the Florida Chamber. Carolyn?
Thank you, John, and thank you to Florida Makes for inviting me today. It's a pleasure to be here with Tom and Representative LaMarca. I'm Carolyn Johnson, and I am Senior Policy Director of Business, Economic Development, and Innovation Policy for the Florida Chamber of Commerce. And so out of the Florida Chamber 6 pillars, I handle economic development, which includes manufacturing, as well as all of the business climate type issues. So thrilled to be here today and speak about what happened this past legislative session, as well as what might be happening down the road. The Florida Chamber of Commerce has also been around for over 100 years. Our founding is a little bit unique. We started off in response to the cattle tick, which was the biggest issue of the day, and have continued to evolve from there. And so it's, again, great to be here. We have a great relationship with Florida Makes. Kevin Carr is on our board of trustees for the Florida Chamber Foundation, and I've always appreciated the partnership that we have with Florida Makes and the regional manufacturing organization. So thanks for letting me be here today.
Outstanding. Thank you again, Carolyn. We appreciate your insights. You bring a whole different perspective to the conversation, which we're grateful for. So let's get started with our wrap up, our observations and insights. We're coming off what anyone would agree is a pretty spectacularly unusual year, and from the legislator's perspective, we might look at it the same way. But Representative LaMarca, please take some time and give us your thoughts and observations for not only this year but looking ahead.
Thanks again, John. And look, I think what we have separate from the pandemic started under Speaker Feeney's time in the legislature, and the last 20 plus years have been really strong leadership for our economy. And I think that's why, whether it was the Great Recession over the late 2000s or the pandemic we just went through, we're able to weather these storms. And no matter how bad, unfortunately, some of these things that happen, it really has to do with how well we're prepared for them. So whether it's having a strong reserve, having good policies, low tax, low regulatory policy to bring people to Florida, and then continue to grow our own Floridians into these great industries, I think that's kind of what sets the stage. But as we look, fast forward to last year, we left Tallahassee with a special budget session a few days after the regular session left us, and we were in the beginning of the pandemic, and we didn't know what we didn't know at the time, but we did know it was going to be pretty interesting, and how it would affect labor, how it would affect markets, how it would affect a lot of things. But I believe, coming into this session, we were all expecting, based on EDR and all the other, forecasts through the chamber and AIF of, what things were looking like. We thought we were in a much, much bigger hole than we were, but what we didn't realize, in my mind, here's how I see it. What we didn't realize, we had so much momentum building because of governor's leadership and our industries staying open when other places were closed, that, those dollars were coming in, and we really could not predict how well things would be, considering how bad they were everywhere else in the United States. So I think as we got towards the budget process, we were all very restrained, the appropriations process and other things like that. We're all very restrained, thinking we had a huge budget gap to deal with. And that started to reduce and diminish as we got towards the end of session. Obviously, with some of the federal dollars, as I describe it, whether it's previous or current administrations, the federal government was there to support some of this, but the state of Florida was really the one responsible for making sure that we came out of COVID and our industries are up and going. So for me, this was an interesting session, and talk more about specific policy, but I think it was a winner for businesses and our industries here in Florida because of the opportunity to present policy.
What really is a standout for you in terms of some of the legislative initiatives? What jumps off the page at you?
Well, this year was an interesting year for me. I was kind of the agency guy. I had DEO, the highways, Florida Highway and Motor Vehicles, as well as Department of Transportation. But without a doubt, the most important piece of legislation that passed, in my mind, through the Florida House and then the Senate and the governor signed was the remote sales tax. And in any other year, it was pushed back and forth between parts of the Republican Party, some parts of the Democrat Party, and whether the governor wanted to sign it or not. But ultimately this year, the value of that bill created about $1 billion in previously uncollected but legal sales taxes. And ultimately, that's going to reaffirm our unemployment trust fund, which basically would keep from hitting our local and Florida businesses with a 700% tax increase. So really, it was the abatement of a 700% increase. But then on top of that, once that unemployment trust fund is backfilled, we're going to be cutting 275% of the local business tax, the business rent tax. That I tell people that, look, it's the only odd tax we have here in Florida that we've been trying to get rid of for many, many years. The Chamber and AIF have been very strong supporters of that. That being said, that'll be down to 2% in a few years once Employment Trust Fund is backfilled. And I think the effect of that one bill, Senate Bill 50 on remote sales tax, will take us a decade to realize how important it was. And I don't think it would have passed but for the pandemic and how important revenues to the state of Florida are this year.
Speaker Feeney, you've been an active participant and observer for many years. What are your thoughts on this past year and looking ahead?
Well, you're an interesting news cycle for the last 12 months, John. The other day, the United States military and NASA acknowledged that UFOs may well be in existence all over the planet, and pretty much nobody batted an eye at that news. That would have been news in my day as speaker years ago, but now we just shrug our shoulders and say, yeah, what's new? So it's been a fascinating year, and Representative LaMarca, our governor, the legislature have done a fantastic job navigating us through troubled times and actually taking advantage of the relative position Florida is in to grow our economy, and we're much stronger than other states. So thank you to our leadership. I again want to touch on the fact that Florida Makes does a terrific job. Some of the things that the AIF is actively partnering and leading on are helping our defense manufacturers come up to speed through a series of 10 boot camps on cybersecurity. Every defense contractor is going to have to get a certification, or literally if your guy that cuts the grass or sells hot dogs at a defense contractor's property, you're going to have a certain minimum level of cyber compliance. And we all see how important cybersecurity is, not just for defense contractors. So thanks to Florida Makes, the U.S. Defense Department and the Department of Economic Opportunity are the other key partners in that. Also building the most robust supply chain so that small manufacturers can connect with mid-sized and large manufacturers. The Connects database that Florida Makes controls is tied into the AIF, National Association of Manufacturers database nationally. So we can connect a small manufacturer that makes widgets to large and mid-sized purchasers across the country. But a couple of the things that I wanted to mention, because I know Carolyn, just like AIF files 600 legislative bills a year, I think Representative LaMarca is right. The tax change to help put our retailers on parity with international online sales, but also cutting taxes on unemployment insurance was just critical so that our businesses don't get hit as they're trying to recover from the pandemic with a huge unemployment tax increase. And eventually abating the commercial lease tax is terrific. Also, the tort reform package, which was part of our reset recommendations. But I wanted to mention two issues at the federal level that all manufacturers should be paying attention to. One is the President Biden's tax proposals. His initial proposals, according to the National Association of Manufacturing, would have cost America 1 million jobs. It would have been very difficult for businesses to navigate. His proposals call for increasing the corporate tax from 21 to 25%, reinstating the corporate minimum tax, ending to business expense tax. When you add all those things together, NAM estimated it would cost about $1 million. And so we will see what happens with that tax proposal. The good news is that there are some moderate Democrats that don't want to be seen as raising taxes that hurt business. They're afraid if the economy gets hurt, that they will be punished as a Democratic Party next year. So we may get a better tax proposal than what the president has proposed. It's important that we not punish businesses trying to recover from the worst pandemic in 100 years. The second bill, which is an opportunity as much as a challenge, is the infrastructure bill. And once again, moderate Democrats are concerned that whatever you do on the infrastructure side, and almost every policymaker is in favor of robust infrastructure support. So we're rooting for this at AIF, as are virtually all businesses. But the question is, what actually constitutes infrastructure? So we all know we need better bridges updated. We've got 15 ports here in Florida we can support. There's all sorts of road work that can be done. 5G, expanding the broadband to rural and underserved communities, and other opportunities are great for manufacturing because it connects us better, provides transportation, and there are all sorts of opportunities for Florida's manufacturers to put their products on boats, because the worst export Florida has are empty containers. So when we import stuff and then send empty containers back overseas, we want Florida manufacturers to fill those ships. We think there's a good chance an infrastructure bill will pass. It will cut out some of the welfare type programs. You know, it may be good programs, but we don't think child care and welfare and housing support, amongst other things, should be part of hard infrastructure. And so there's an opportunity for Congress to do this the right way. We're going to try to work hard with our partners at the federal level, including the National Association of Manufacturing, to see that that helps. And I'll look forward to talking about some of the Florida opportunities that AIF is partnering with the businesses around the state to promote. John, thanks.
Excellent. Great points. And you mentioned the Connect system, and that in and of itself is pretty exciting. And hopefully that gets more promotion as manufacturers, small and large, try to thrive and find new opportunity in a virtual environment. That's sure to contribute. So appreciate you mentioning that as well. Carolyn, it's been a wild year. Give us some thoughts about what you saw this past season, this past session, and looking ahead.
Yeah, thank you, John. I think overall for the business community, this legislative session was largely successful. The Florida Chamber passed 22 priority pieces of legislation that impacts the entire business community, and so we're very thrilled about that. You know, Representative LaMarca mentioned a bill that was very near and dear to our hearts at the Florida Chamber. That would not only level the playing field between Main Street businesses and out-of-state businesses, but also buy down the unemployment insurance trust fund. We had been hearing from our members and had been actively engaged on that since those new rates hit in November of 2020, as well as the buying down of the business credit tax. That has been a multi-year effort that AIF and the Chamber and other organizations have been working on, and that's probably the most significant decrease that we have seen on the business credit tax. So huge win all around, and want to thank Representative LaMarca for that. Another key issue that passed that was really related to the pandemic was the COVID-19 liability protective, which the entire business community rallied around. And, you know, that was so important that if businesses were doing their best to try to keep their employees and customers safe, that they would not be subject to frivolous litigation. And so that was the first bill that passed this legislative session. The Florida Chamber, as well as others, started working on that early on in the pandemic. We had over 100 local chambers, as well as other local organizations engaging back home with their lawmakers, trying to get that passed. And so to the local manufacturing association, we appreciate your help on ensuring that legislation is passed. I want to touch real quick on one issue that is important to manufacturing that didn't pass and one that did pass. Representative LaMarca also filed legislation this past year that would reauthorize the Qualified Targeted Industries Tax Refund Program. And that tax refund would have been helpful for businesses looking to relocate to the state or manufacturers looking to expand their footprint in the state. And so we look forward to continuing with Representative LaMarca on trying to get that across the finish line, because we really feel that that's an important incentive program. On the bright side, one economic tool that was successful this legislative session is there was funding for the Florida Job Growth Grant Fund program. And so that would allow local community colleges and universities to set up training programs So there's certainly opportunities that might be important to the manufacturing community and improving workforce needs there, but also there's an infrastructure component. So we see that as a win for this legislative session, and we'll continue to try to work on some of the other opportunities that are out there.
Excellent, thank you. I appreciate you raising the issue of the Qualified Targeted Industry Tax Refund Program. That was a sort of a stalwart pillar in the toolkit for economic developers around the state, and it's been sorely missed. Representative Lamarck, I wonder if you might just comment on that, where you see the value and what you see moving forward.
Well, first of all, my perspective on QTI, for example, I had the privilege of serving almost my entire 8 years on the county commission as a liaison to the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance, which is our economic development organization here in Broward County, with Bob Swindell. And I watched, as programs came, companies moved to Florida and were able to take advantage of, some of these rebate programs, and QTI specifically was one that it didn't always work out for companies. I mean, it's not a handout. It's a rebate after you've actually done what you said you were going to do. It has a clawback. I mean, it's in my mind, a very fiscally responsible, pro current majority in the Florida House and the governor's mansion. These are rules that we can live by, and unfortunately, it's sunsetted. It would be my goal to bring it back and remove the sunset. It is, as you'd mentioned, it is not a blank check written to a company to move to Florida. It is a very fair agreement in my mind with a company that has decided they're going to lay out on the table what their plans are. In other words, what their investment's going to be, what their investment in human capital, as well as their business operation to move to Florida. And after that has been satisfied, then there is that rebate via the end of the day, I know there's pushback. What I would say to the manufacturing community and the folks that are under the AIF or chamber umbrella is that we need to do a little bit better advocacy next year, and we need to continue to push this thing. I'm going to be here, and I'm going to be looking for your help.
Excellent, thank you, appreciate that. Well, we've got a little bit of time left for Q&A, and I imagine that we'll have some contributions from viewers. One of the burning questions that I've had of late is with regards to workforce and workforce preparedness. I think most folks involved in business development around the state understand that when a company relocates here, they're probably going to relocate a core team, but they're going to be looking for an indigenous talented workforce to be on those machines and be on the line and be processing, be machining, be tooling, be working. And I wonder if each of you might share maybe just a minute or two on your thoughts about our state's preparedness from a workforce standpoint, what we might do, what we might keep our mind's eye on moving forward. Big Feeney, we could start with you if you don't mind making a comment.
Not at all, John. Number one, I'll tell you, I guess I'm by far and away the old man in the group from a policy perspective. Workforce in Florida and diversifying our economy is not a new issue. It's been around since at least the 80s. And it's not a Florida issue. Candidly, there are something like 1 million manufacturing jobs, according to the National Association of Manufacturing, that are available that are going unfilled, largely because of the talent gap. But there's some good news on the Florida front. Ever since Governor Bush, and I was his running mate in 1994, we lost that race. I still teased Jeb that he was a drag on my ticket that year. But once he did get elected, Florida has led the country in K-12 reforms, particularly in the minority communities, and that's been great news. We have a terrific state and community college system. Our universities have, for 3 years running, been ranked #1 according to U.S. News and World Report. That news is not out there to the 49 states for business leaders and recruiters that are doing the vetting. So part of it is we have to tell our story. But the second part is we've got a long way to go. I mean, our K-12 system and our universities for many years have been turning out students with skills that they want to teach, as opposed to often what the business community needs and is prepared to hire. And filling that gap and that connectivity is something that Governor Scott worked on, Governor DeSantis is working on. I know that the Chamber and AIF are working on that. So we've got a long way to go, but there is a good side of the story to tell.
That's great. Appreciate that perspective. Carolyn, any final thoughts in that respect?
Well, I think Tom is absolutely right. The workforce quality issue and the skills gap is an age-old issue and something that the business community has been working on solving with government over the last several decades, at least based off of my research, not being the old man in the room. But, you know, the Florida Chamber knows that there is a skills gap, and it's something that we're working on day in and day out. And we're starting as early as ensuring that children are ready for kindergarten, that they can read at a 3rd grade reading level when they're passing 3rd grade, because all of that matters for later opportunities. And so that's something that the Florida Chamber Foundation has been focused on. And then ensuring that we're creating pathways for students into careers that have good paying jobs, to get rid of the stigma of going to community college or vocational school. Some plumbers make more money than I do. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with these types of careers. And so getting rid of that stigma is also important.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, Representative LaMarca, we've got a great workforce development agency in the state. CareerSource Florida does a fantastic job, as do the local workforce boards. But any additional thoughts about workforce and workforce prep for manufacturers in particular in the state?
Yes, John. Carolyn said it, and then look, we wouldn't be where we are today without some creative, conservative leaders like Speaker Feeney back in his time, and when Governor Bush did finally get into the governor's mansion. I mean, look, the state has been on this path from an education perspective, but there's a reason why the main education committee is now called Education and Employment. It is to put forward a workforce product that makes those determinations. And my background's construction, you know, on the management side, but organizations like ABC and the like, you know, with their workforce training and their apprenticeship programs, and whether it's manufacturing programs, it's important to connect every young student, male or female, with a career not just they want to do, but where there's a tremendous need. And in Florida, we have those needs. What's really important is what Carolyn said. I always would tell young kids in my community when I was on the local government or on the county commission, or even today when I go to meet with kids in middle or high school. It's, you know, the doctors and the lawyers are putting in the long hours on Friday, and the plumbing, electrical, mechanical contractors, their boat's already left for the Bahamas come Thursday night. You know, they had a 3-day weekend, not because it's an easy job, because they worked hard to get there. And there's a value in putting in good work, and it's sometimes it's hard work, and many times it is. But the reality is, you can build a business, you know, put your name on the front door after you've done your time for someone else, and really have a career where your kids will have a continual better life than you, and that's in manufacturing, or it's in construction, a lot of different trades. And I think the idea that going to work inside has any better value than going to work outside really depends on what you're able to gain from that. And like I said, it's not just about a paycheck, but there's certainly try to have something built right now or manufactured, and you know, you see the shortage and the demand is going to drive prices up. So I'm hoping that our education employment committees will continue to put out opportunities through our workforce boards and through our actual K-12 education system, where kids will say, well, that's what I want to do. I want to work with my hands, or I want to build something and manufacture something, and that's ultimately how I'm going to, you know, raise, you know, put a family together and put a career together and leave a legacy, because it's really important that we have people that value that work. And there's a lot going on right now. There's a tremendous demand.
I really appreciate that perspective. I appreciate all of your perspectives. Great insights, and a wonderful way to kind of wrap up the session today. I think we've probably still got a little bit of time for some Q&A, but at this point we can probably break and take a look at the chat and see if we've got anything else from viewers. But I want to thank each of you again for participating, and thank our sponsor, Lockheed Martin, for their contributions as well. Great job, everybody. Appreciate your participation.
Okay,
all right. Well, we've got some questions from the audience, and we've got about 10 minutes to do Q&A with our panelists. So let's take our first question from our participants, and that is for Representative Lamarca. It's, what can manufacturers do to support legislative efforts to ensure relevant training funds are available to support work readiness in our school system?
Thanks, John, and thanks for the question to the audience. But the best thing that manufacturers and really any group advocating for not only funding but policy issues for their industry and education is to show up. And thank goodness COVID is past us in the pandemic, and the Capitol's reopened. You can be there. First of all, reach out to your local representatives. Make sure that your priority list or your issues that are important for the industry are on our radar, and make sure you contact really kind of as many folks on the committees that will be hearing your issue. I'm on tourism, infrastructure, and energy, which is going to take in a lot of these issues for manufacturing, as well as infrastructure and our communities here in Florida. So look, I welcome your calls. You can call me directly or reach out on our State House webpage. And then obviously having folks like the Chamber and AIF advocating for you helps a lot. So really it's showing up and communicating.
Super, thank you. We've got another question. It's for you, Tom. It's what do NAM and AIF think the big challenges and the opportunities are, particularly for Florida manufacturers?
Well, the pandemic and the recovery pandemic has taught us a lesson about supply chains, among other things. And that is that if you're a relatively small manufacturer that makes a fairly simple piece of equipment, there may be 50 components to that equipment. Well, if a storm in Puerto Rico takes out 3 of the pieces that are critical to your component, you can't sell your product. You can't sell it up the line to larger manufacturers. Supply chain resiliency, redundancy is become very critical. And then particularly in the light of the pandemic, when you are relying on foreign countries, sometimes hostile countries, for key medicines or key healthcare equipment, PPE. We hear our Senator Rubio every day talk about reshoring the key technical equipment that Americans use. A lot of our regular equipment like cell phones and TVs and computers is spying on us. And then you get into defense and other areas. We are learning that we need to have an Americanized supply chain. NAM is built the manufacturer's marketplace. We are working with Florida Makes, who has basically taken the lead designing a manufacturer supply chain database for Florida manufacturers called Connects. You tie those two together, you can do business all over the country if you're a small manufacturer. So that's one of the many things. Of course, workforce is important. And we thank people like Representative Lamarco, who's been a champion of business in general and manufacturing in specific.
Super, thanks. Carolyn, the question is, where is the chamber going to focus as committees form at the end of the year and we look at the next session? And I gather a lot of our manufacturers are not only members of manufacturing associations, but they're also members of the chamber as well. So that's an interesting question. Where will the chamber's focus be going into the next session?
Yeah, thank you, John. So we are actually very soon going to start working on our legislative agenda for the 2022 legislative session. And that's something that is member driven and board driven. So if anybody has, any ideas, would love to hear them. But some immediate thoughts come to mind, some perennial issues that we've been working on. You heard me say earlier that getting the Qualified Targeted Industry Tax Refund Program reauthorized is going to be a priority for the next legislative session. Workforce training and workforce development and just workforce infrastructure in general is such a hot topic right now. And so, I'm sure that there's going to be several discussions on how we can get people back to work and what the business community as well as the government can do to incentivize a return to work, whether or not that's providing additional training or additional upskilling to get people into different jobs. And then there's a couple of issues. One that the chamber has been working on for years that some might not consider a sexy issue, but it's an important issue, and that's lawsuit abuse reform. We have the 46th worst legal climate in the country. And at the end of the day, that impacts companies' bottom line, and that impacts the state's competitiveness. And so that's something that the Florida Chamber will continue to be focused on. And then one thing that a lot of businesses might not be aware of, and will especially impact the larger businesses, is that on January 1, 2022, the corporate income tax rate increases from 4.4% to 5.5% again. And that's something that the legislature had reduced the corporate income tax back in 2018, 2019 as a result of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Well, that tax decrease was only temporary. Meanwhile, a lot of the federal base broadening measures are still in place. And so that's something that the Florida Chamber is going to be focused on, is ensuring that we're not hurting business productivity by increasing taxes. And then, of course, federal tax reform and what happens at the federal level will also drive some of the tax discussions at the state level in the next year.
Great. Thank you, Carolyn. We've got about 3 minutes left, and I really would like to sneak one last question in. Carolyn, you mentioned the QTI, the Qualified Targeted Tax Industry Program. Representative Lamarco, the question is clearly from an economic developer. What's it going to take, and what would the advantage be to bringing back QTI, the QTI program for Florida? In about 2.5 minutes, please tell us more about the QTI program from your perspective.
Thanks, John. And I had the privilege of working directly with the Chamber and AAF, and that was a priority for me last year. I actually filed a bill to remove the sunset date, to put QTI back into effect. And I'll just speak on two sides. But one, politically, it's going to be a heavy lift. So I will need, and we will need, the business community, the industries, manufacturing, and all sectors of the economy to kind of make the case. And why I say that is this was removed a few years ago by some of our people who I consider mentors and excellent leaders in the Florida House. And we have to make the case that, look, this is not a handout. This is a This is a rebate after you've invested in Florida. If you make the commitment to invest in Florida, either to relocate here or to increase your footprint, maybe it's capital equipment, other things, there is a rebate program that you have to make those investments. So the reason why this program was kind of so foolproof, if you will, is if you don't make those investments, you don't get the rebate. And if you've gotten a rebate and you go back on your part of the contract, there's a clawback function. So ultimately, it is a really good deal for Florida, but more importantly, it's one resource and one tool in the toolkit to bring people here and bring their industries. And we know that other states are hurting real bad based on the fact that they don't have the excellent leadership that our governors provided, and past leaders like Tom Feeney provided the state of Florida for 20 plus years. So, I mean, all that goes into the process of getting folks here, but we do need some small resource tools, and UTI really is one of those that I thought was fair and equitable, as well as giving an opportunity to bring folks here and put something in there, in the process of getting them to pick Florida over another state.
Thank you. Appreciate that response. I know too that once upon a time there was some analysis that indicated the return was about 15 to 1 for every dollar spent in QTI. The state got about $15 back. So I wish I could get that in my 401k. Right. So, well, we got about a half a minute. No, we've got a little bit more time. So let's take at least one more question from the audience. The participant has asked, how can our policymakers provide a foundation for business to build or rebuild the economy in ways that provide broad-based opportunity? I think that's a pretty interesting question, because I think we tend to focus on high-tech, high-wage jobs, and I think it's actually incumbent upon us to create jobs across a broad spectrum. Your thoughts?
Well, I'll jump in real quick. I mean, the answer is it's something that Florida's wrestled with since at least 1990, when I first got elected to the House. And ultimately, for people today that are part of the underskilled population, you've got to get them some technical skills where the jobs of the future are. I mean, we're just not going to have enough service sector only jobs for unskilled employees, and that's a very important part of Florida's economy. But the jobs tend not to be high page, high wage, and high benefit, whereas the technical jobs nowadays are. There's a huge competition to pay more money to attract workers. But the ultimate goal is to start getting people interested in STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, and medical from the time they're in elementary school, and drive that passion toward middle school so they're ready by the time they hit high school to make elections about jobs of the future. And so there's a short-term solution, which is reskilling workers that are looking for upgrading their pay and their benefits. But there's a long-term solution that depends on education in a robust technical and science manner.
Super. Any other thoughts?
I'll jump in real quick. I think there's also a lot of this is messaging. High school students, middle school students need to know about these jobs that are available, that are going to be way more beneficial to them financially than just being in the service industry. And there needs to be messaging about, what these jobs entail, and how that they're not the jobs that they think they are. A lot of people think of manufacturing as, what they were in the early 1900s. And we know that that's not the case. Manufacturing jobs are great jobs. It's not line workers. And so, to the extent that messaging opportunity can happen, I think that's important, not just from a policymaker perspective, but from a education perspective.
We have bumped right up against the edge of our time limit. Want to thank each of you again for participating and for all your insights. Very valuable, especially coming from your unique perspectives. Also want to remember to thank our sponsor for this portion of the program, Lockheed Martin. And now we'll turn it back over to Zoraida.
Thank you, John, Representative LaMarca, Tom, and Carolyn. We've got lots of work to do to elevate manufacturing for Florida, but we're lucky to have legislators and advocates like you to help support the industry and move it forward. We also have a set of organizations who understand and support this cause. Special thanks to Lockheed Martin, who specifically sponsored this business climate session, and we'll be playing a video from Lockheed later on today, but also Kaufman, Rawson, Synovus, Florida Economic Development Council, and the rest of the companies and partners you see on the screen. These conversations would not have been possible if it wasn't for the financial and in-kind contributions that they committed to this. Now, before we move on to the next segment of our program, here's another opportunity for you to win a gift card. Florida's legislature created the first ever manufacturing and supply chain caucus this year. Whoever types the correct number of legislators who make up that caucus wins a Landry's gift card. And I'll wait a few seconds and let my team here in the studio tell me if any of you have guessed what that number is. It's between 1 and 20.
Waiting. MakeMore. MakeMore?
MakeMore?
Yes.
16. Good job. Please send us your mailing address at events@floridamakes.com so that we can mail your gift card, or send us a message in the Q&A box with your address and we'll get that to you next week. Now, continuing from yesterday, Phil Santonzi, SMB Process Co-Lead, and Rhea Garavera, Florida Makes Chairman of the Board, will announce the silver and gold winners of the Sterling Manufacturing Business Excellence Awards. All winners will receive an on-site visit this summer from their Regional Manufacturers Association, accompanied by a community leader and an SMBE lead judge to present the award to the entire company in person. These visits will be featured in October during Manufacturing Month. Phil, take it away.
As the co-leaders of the SMBE award process, Patty and I thank you, winners, finalists, and all participating manufacturers for seeking to achieve excellence and meeting your customers' needs. To all Florida manufacturing ecosystem partners, please be thinking about recognizing a deserving manufacturer for the SMBE 2022 awards. Our nomination period will open in November. Consider nominating a customer, vendor, or partner to be recognized and who could benefit from feedback to take their business to higher levels of performance. Thank you. Ray?
It's great to be back with you today to announce and celebrate the silver and gold winners of the SMBE Award. As mentioned yesterday, the Sterling Manufacturing Business Excellence Award is a prestigious award given by Florida Makes and the Sterling Council based on the Sterling criteria for business performance excellence. Just a note, the bronze and silver award winners can apply for the 2022 award in hopes of reaching gold status. The gold award winners must sit out for 2 years before applying again. In no particular order, the silver winners are, congratulations to Train Lynn Haven.
Train Lynn Haven, a subsidiary of Train Technologies, employs 750 people to manufacture residential and light commercial packaged HVAC equipment and provides safe and comfortable environments for customers around the globe. Train Lynn Haven serves several vertical markets from traditional retail, office, and education to high-growth areas like indoor agriculture and data centers. Congratulations to Train Lynn Haven.
Next, Team Solutions Dental.
Founded in 2013, Team Solutions Dental is Central Florida's premier full-service dental laboratory. The company manufactures dental prosthetics, ranging from crowns and bridges to dentures, partials, protective appliances, and orthodontic appliances. By focusing on high-speed, in-house manufacturing coupled with relentless customer service, Team Solutions Dental has rapidly grown to over 90 employees in 3 Florida locations: Orlando, Leesburg, and Jacksonville. Congratulations, Silver Award winner, Team Solutions.
Easy Foods, Inc.
Easy Foods is a tortilla manufacturer headquartered in Kissimmee, founded on the premise that artisan roots and values make a difference. Easy Foods is committed to operating under the highest quality and safety standards while maintaining unparalleled efficiencies. Easy Foods has the fastest and most technologically advanced equipment in the market for manufacturing tortillas, nacho chips, and wraps that are consistent, pliable, and most importantly, flavorful. Congratulations, Easy Foods Incorporated, our silver winner.
Congratulations to R&D Automation.
Founded in 2005 and based in Lakewood Ranch, R&D Automation designs, engineers, and integrates automation solutions for packaging and assembly applications in the medical, device, life sciences, and consumer products sectors, among others. Core offerings include platform-agnostic robotics, vision systems integration, custom standard packaging, and assembly automation equipment. R&D Automation Engineering, congratulations on being a Silver Award winner.
Next, we have MAG Aerospace.
MAG Aerospace is a provider of development and systems integration services for U.S. Special Operations Forces and General Purpose Forces from its Fort Walton Beach facility. These laboratories consist of critical components hosting virtual networks capable of simulating numerous testing environments that play an important role in developing and testing the architecture, configuration, communication, and automation software that supports our integration projects. Congratulations, MAG Aerospace, on a silver win.
Congratulations to Commercial Metals Company.
Commercial Metals Company, also known as CMC Steel Florida, is a global leader in sustainable recycling, manufacturing, and fabrication of steel and metal products. Founded in 1915, CMC Steel Florida in Jacksonville utilizes state-of-the-art electric arc furnace technology to melt recycled scrap steel into finished products, including steel reinforcing bar or rebar and wire rod. With 10 steel mills and over 180 facilities worldwide, CMC is the nation's largest manufacturer and fabricator of rebar.
BAE Systems Jacksonville Ship Repair.
In Jacksonville, BAE Systems specialize in mega yacht repairs and refits, as well as commercial and U.S. Navy ship repairs and conversions, marine fabrication, and industrial fabrication and assembly. BAE is a premier provider of maintenance and repair support for U.S. Navy ships home ported in Mayport. The BAE Systems mission is to provide customers with a total maintenance solution while meeting or exceeding quality standards. Congratulations, BAE Systems Jacksonville Ship Repair, on a Silver Award win.
And congratulations to Q Strength.
Q Strength is the premier leader in wheelchair passenger safety solutions, with sales and a direct presence in over 70 countries. They design, engineer, and test their safety solutions for integration with nearly every major automotive OEM globally, from their headquarters located in Oakland Park. Almost every mode of transportation, from personal vehicles to city bus and rail systems, feature Q Strength equipment, certified and tested in a dedicated crash test facility.
And now, for the gold, those manufacturers achieving the highest recognition this year. And again, in no particular order, we have congratulations to Fleet Readiness Center Southeast.
Fleet Readiness Center Southeast began in 1940 as the Assembly and Repair Department at Naval Air Station Jacksonville. Today, Fleet is Northeast Florida and Southeast Georgia's largest maintenance, repair, overhaul, and technical services provider, employing more than 5,000 civilian, military, and contract workers with an annual revenue exceeding $1 billion. The manufacturing teams provide parts for the U.S. military, various government agencies, foreign military allies, defense contractors, and industry partners. Congratulations to Fleet Readiness Center Southeast, a gold winner.
Slice Engineering.
Slice Engineering designs and manufactures high-performance 3D printer components for use in thermoplastics. Slice components are utilized in numerous additive manufacturing applications, ranging from DIY projects to implantable medical devices, and from retrofitting U.S. Navy vessels to small-volume, high-changeover plastics manufacturing operations. Slice Engineering sells across the United States and into over 30 countries through the global reseller network. Congratulations to our Gold Award winner, Slice Engineering.
Next, CAE Healthcare.
CAE believes that better healthcare begins with better training and technology for healthcare providers. CAE Healthcare offers integrated education and training solutions to healthcare students and clinical professionals, allowing them to develop practical experience in simulated environments before treating patients. CAE Healthcare includes surgical and imaging simulation. Curriculum, the CAE Learning Space, audiovisual and center management platform, and highly realistic adult, pediatric, and baby patient simulators. Congratulations, CAE Healthcare, on your Gold Award.
Congratulations to Lockheed Martin.
Lockheed Martin's Pinellas facility supports multiple aeronautics programs with core competencies focusing on fabrication, structural subassembly, and canopies. The company vision is to manufacture products with industry-leading quality to meet customer evolving missions. Lockheed's greatest asset is the 330 capable, experienced employees who never forget who our customers are and commit to safely delivering the highest quality products every day. Congratulations to Lockheed Martin Aerostructures, a gold winner.
And again, Pierce Manufacturing.
Pierce Manufacturing builds trucks that live up to customer demands. In 1913, Pierce Manufacturing began building truck bodies on Model T Ford chassis in an old converted church and has evolved to creating highly customized, carefully designed, and engineered bumpers, aerials, tankers, and rescue units that have no equal. When the best people you know are the very people you serve, there is only room for exceptional. Congratulations to our final Gold Award winner, Pierce Manufacturing.
Congratulations to all the 2021 Manufacturing Business Excellence Award winners. Earning this place here signifies the hard work and effort put into meeting the needs of your customers, ensuring success. The judging team explained to me that there are this many winners this year due to the fact that this process attracts so many high-performing organizations. Florida Makes is happy to be part of this recognition.
Congratulations to the silver and gold winners. We're very proud of having companies like yours call Florida home. Now, as I noted earlier, the Business Climate segment was sponsored by Lockheed Martin. You're watching a special video from the company. Special thanks to Joe Mayer, Florida Makes board member and co-chair of our advocacy committee, not only for this sponsorship, but for his commitment to our organizations and the advancement of manufacturing in Florida. Now, before we have Kevin join us for closing remarks, I want to make sure you have the correct instructions on how to access our live networking for afterwards. When we're done here, you'll need to click on that Made in Florida networking logo that you have on the left of your screen on the top. That will open a new web browser. Once you're in this new web browser, click on Regional Booths and Networking. That will access the live networking booths, and you can select one of the regions that you want to network with. Once you've clicked on it, click on that play button on that big yellow screen, and you'll be inside one of the booths. Click on that Made in Florida networking logo again, and you'll be entered into a Zoom account where the staff from that Regional Manufacturers Association will be waiting for you. You can jump from booth to booth for the next 30 minutes once we're done here. And that will run for 30 minutes after Kevin's remark. And now for closing remarks, Florida Makes CEO Kevin Carr.
Thank you, Zoraida. What a great couple days. Again, I want to thank all the panelists and the facilitators. And I especially want to thank our sponsors and our hosting sponsors. You know, from the state, we have CareerSource, a very relevant partner as it relates to all the discussion that we've had with respect to workforce. Enterprise Florida with respect to a lot of the business growth. Two very key critical sponsors, two critical assets that really manufacturers should be, if they're not already tapping into tomorrow. From the private sector, our hosting co-sponsors are AIF, and you saw Tom Feeney, very critical part of our infrastructure here in the state and our connectivity, if you will, to the National Association of Manufacturers. And then finally, from the private sector, the Florida Chamber of Commerce, and you heard from Carolyn. I want to thank Mark and his team for all the work that they do trying to move manufacturing along as a priority industry within the state. Finally, I want to shout out to our federal sponsor, who we don't talk about too often, but underwrites a lot of our work here at Florida Makes, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and their Manufacturing Extension Partnership Program. Special thanks to them. As you could hear and see, if you didn't catch on through the past couple of days, there are really two overarching themes that you're hearing again and again from the participant. The first deals with workforce, not only our incumbent workforce that is really in need of a lot of upskill, but also the pipeline, our folks that are in middle school and high school, and they're the workforce of tomorrow, whether that's engineering or in the plant, how we critically develop and foster and grow that workforce to be the best in class, best in the country, best in the world. And two key partners that have been particularly focused on that workforce have really been Career Source and the Chamber of Commerce. And you'll see we'll continue to work and focus on that theme. The other overarching theme that you picked up through the participants in the discussion is supply chain. And really, when you think of workforce and you think of supply chain, they're becoming the two differentiators for where a manufacturer sets up its operation. They're looking to see whether you have that pipeline, whether you have the people, whether you have the infrastructure to develop that workforce, but then also do you have a field of suppliers that can readily support that industry? And I know enterprise, as an example, that's one of the key questions that companies that are thinking about coming to the state immediately ask. Workforce, supply chain. I know that's critical also to the folks over at Space Florida. So when we talk about supply chain, we're really focusing on how do we help companies in Florida increase their participation. A real key issue, not only because of the pandemic, we deal with this every year with hurricanes, our supply chain resilience. Every year our supply chain gets disrupted. So that's become an increasing part of our focus on how do we mitigate, if you will, some of those disruptions. And finally, it's really a growth opportunity, not only domestic, but also international. We work and we're developing some partnerships with the SBDCs and with Enterprise Florida to look at how do we get a greater participation in an international marketplace. So again, they're the folks that we're working on in particular there, EFI, AIF, Space Florida, and Florida Makes. And you'll be hearing more about, if you heard a couple times, I guess through the sessions, the discussion of the Connects database, which is a supplier capability database that EFI, AIF, and Space Florida are all being promoted to get greater participation from our supply base. If they don't know you're there, a lot of these companies that are looking for your capabilities, looking for your skills, looking for your products, can't find you. So this is all part of what we're trying to develop in the way of the infrastructure, as the Ida office calls it, the ecosystem of manufacturing for the state. That the degree to which we can optimize the assets that we have in the state really talks to how well we'll be successful as manufacturers, but also as a manufacturing economy in the world. I'll ask, along those two lines, really, that you join us again on July 27th, 28th, where we'll be focusing particularly on the talent development. Many times during these past couple of days, I thought, oh my God, this is starting to sound like talent development. But we're really going to drill in on talent development July 27th and 28th. And then in August, on the 24th and 25th, technology. Industry 4.0 kind of technologies of the 21st century, which are really defining who gets to participate in that marketplace. And that's where you'll be hearing more about things like Connect. You'll be hearing more about us working with the different assets in the state colleges, universities, technology centers that can help promote greater use of the technology. And if you think about it, workforce and technology, they work hand in hand. When we're upskilling the workforce, we're upskilling it for really leading edge. I shouldn't even call it leading edge, state of the market technologies at this point. Finally, I want to thank Zoraida and her team for pulling together a very great session. I had the opportunities to stand on the other side of the table and watch the mechanics as it gets put together. It's kind of like sausage making, but they've done a really, really excellent job. And we were kind of on the fence as to whether to do this live or to do this virtual. And, you know, the planning window told us we had to at least do this virtually, even though the world's opening up now. So you'll see as we move through this year's summit and through a series of events, we'll slowly go from virtual to live. I think we're together live in October.
In October, that's right.
So I really want to appreciate that team for pulling all the production together. Again, I want to thank our partners and their sponsors for putting the content on the bones of this. You know, we can talk about the topics, but they make it relevant, they give it life, and they really do point out not only where the gaps are, but also where the assets are that can help solve some of those issues, some of those challenges, or capture some of those opportunities that are out there for manufacturers. And then finally, before I run out of breath, I want to thank all of you who participated. I mean, the purpose of the summit is to get that input. Otherwise, we're an ecosystem that's sitting there without direction, and you don't want us making up that direction. We need to hear that from the manufacturers. We need to hear that from the partners that are sort of walking that walk every day in the sector. So I want to thank you, and thank you, Zoraida. And with that, I'll end our session unless you have other comments.
I do. Just some further instructions. Thank you, Kevin, for your leadership and for your comments. What Kevin said, you know, it's important that you continue to engage. If you haven't joined the MakeMore community, we can continue this conversation between now and July. Just go to floridamakemore.com and create your profile, join that conversation, bring in topics. We will be updating you on the progress of this initiative through that community. So I really encourage you to continue giving feedback. If something that was discussed here triggers an idea later, make sure you share that through that community for us. And now it's time to join for networking live. I gave you the instructions earlier. Remember, you have to click on that logo for the Made in Florida icon. But before I do that, I've got the studio here waving at me that I had promised to give you a special discount code to register for the other two virtual segments, talent development, technology, and then the in-person segment in October. That code should have just appeared on your screen. It's 25 off, so 250FF. It will only be active until midnight tonight. So really, those of you who are still watching are going to get the benefit of that 25% discount on your entire purchase. So whether you purchase attendance to one segment, either talent development or technology or Outlook, which will be in person, or if you buy in a bundle, that code will give you a 25% discount. You'll have to enter that code at the top left of your screen before checking out. It's a little bit hidden, but there's a promo code section up there on the top left of your screen when you go to register. And now it's time for live networking. Click on that logo that's the Made in Florida on the left of your screen. Two pop-up windows will appear on your screen momentarily. One is for you to please complete a short evaluation survey for today's session. And the other one you can click on and it'll also take you to the live networking. A new web browser will appear when you click on the live networking, and you can select what region in Florida you'd like to network with or what sponsor or partner booth you'd like to learn more about. Remember, if you visit all the booths before the end of the day, you'll be entered to win one of those Made in Florida baskets that our regional manufacturers associations have put together. So with that, Thank you very much for joining, and we'll see you in July.